on to solvency. This debate is about competing methodologies. If we prove that our method is a better way to solve for the harms of the affirmative, you vote negative. Our method is about embracing interdependence, contributory virtuosity, and interdependency is the concept that we are all interconnected and that we as beings are all dependent on one another. A good example of this is an analogy of a piece of paper. When we look at a piece of paper, we just see it as something that serves our interest, something that's just there. But when we start thinking about everything that went into that sheet of paper, we realize interdependency from the seed that was planted to the brain that gave life to the seed, to the tree that grew to the gave the seed life to the tree that grew to the parents of the baby, cut down the tree, and so on. This shows that we're all connected to someone and something. And her shock explains contributory virtuosity. There's parenting metaphor for there is no exact playbook for how parents should raise their children. I have 3 brothers, and I'm the only girl, and my parents treat me differently than my brothers because, like, I was a girl. I was like the way that my parents saw me, like growing up, was just inherently different than how they saw my brothers. It was always daddy's girl. My brothers were always mama's boys. That's just how it was. There's no check sheet or like one right way to raise your children. That's like the concept of contributory virtuosity. And in the traces of immense suffering, one can extend their compassion, but it requires forgiving the horrors of atrocity and recognizing the root of that violence dressed and for. Accidentally, when I was in the place for pilgrimage, for 25 days here, we want the echoes of its history from this cruelty and immense suffering taken into our very marrow, principles that picture shoes, house of fools, hair, precious and pumps, and women's hair, which has to be used for stuffing mattresses, breathing things into the killer walls, breaking the strong emotions, breaking the shock brought on by immersion in the atrocity, expeditions to be formal lives that grow in the former selection of sidewalk, tracks and meditation on morning, think better from place along circle, pictures with names taken from Nazi archives of individuals and whole families sort of killed there, walking some different practice when recommended it feels like an escape, a 10 spicy mission at night, outpacing which is the that permeates the very ground. I want to take a measure of this place, but perhaps I walk within it as fast as I'm able to grasp this normally in my mind. Understanding which the and grief soon over. It is humorous to think that I can truly imagine what it would be like to have been imprisoned there. The difficulty comes from watching the perpetrator remains in his heart. It's protected by the oppressed and with the oppressor, especially the challenge of the Auschwitz. Recognize to recognize the total human totality of this place and all of this guys is the basis of structure of the force of race and their families and possession from their community, culture, religion, language, dignity, integrity. From the solidarity of religion, how purposes are designated to leave certain human beings from the body of humanity. Self-our purpose shares a corrective response to resistance to the deadly separation of people that decisive as conflict and violence throughout the world. We cannot fully know the suffering held by this place. I cannot really fathom it yet. I can bear witness to the ignorant traces. Bear witness calls me to complete presence, asking to open again and again to the entire range of responses evoked by this place. Disbelief, numbness, rage, guilt, despair, sorrow, compassion, even joy, and cut it at joy. And the affirmative will fail to solve their impacts. Once power, the impacts will be replicated one way or another. Personal transformation of the all term is a prerequisite to truly changing the political will in 2003. For those who must change the presentation through this social practice, the office will need to work as ourselves as well. See, social system we have that plan to transform our own freedom, will tools and efforts to address these institutional lines are likely to be used to support that may have the same systems and challenges as the political order for that will lead to awakening society from Buddhist perspective. There is nothing surprising about the potential many powers likely to highlight the government's power to be inclined to take advantage of this situation to serve my own interests and private interests and working for Christ. Okay.
How many brothers did you, did your siblings consist of?
Excuse me?
You said you were one of, or there were 6 people living in your household?
Right. I had my mom and my dad, and then my 3 brothers and me.
I have 2 brothers of my own and like no sisters, so I totally feel like how they treat you differently. I like bawled my dad over that. So I mean, they were more daddy's boys, and I was like forced to be my mom's girl. So okay, so this Buddha, the last joy or 3 card, it says what is the Buddhist social practice?
Are you talking about like the Buddhist perspective stuff?
Yeah.
Right. He's talking about how like when we struggle with things, and we take those things with us, like when we struggle and like don't let go of those things, we inherently just always want to like be in power of that emotion. And so like when we take those things with us, it like you will always like serve your own interests. Like
so how does that play in the world of the affirmative?
Right. So you want to essentially do like fiat your plans like eventually. I know it starts with your mindset shift and like it continues.
Right.
But like people in power rarely want to give up, like rarely
So how does changing statute 2340 take away Congress's power that they will want to pass the bill or
Right,
reauthorize
that's
it?
not what we're saying. We're saying that you're wanting to take away the president's power, yes?
That one section, changing that one section.
Right,
so
but
yeah.
you're still decreasing his war power.
So he doesn't have enough other war powers to.
Well, I mean, we can go into about how we all can also solve for all of those things, but we're talking about your affirmative, so I'll say that. But
Let's.
go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. Finish.
I don't even remember.
Okay. I apologize. Okay. What is not the interdependency, but the second part, the
Contributory virtuosity.
Yes.
It's like essentially the idea that we are